G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we finally got our 5 tube stocks back on the bench. It's been about 6 months. These guys were pretty much all just tube stocks, either grown from seed here at home or from our local land care nursery. We had a look at them last video, potted them up into these pots. They've been put onto a table that has automatic waterers on it and pretty much forgotten about. Some are in desperate need of repotting, some aren't too bad, some have had pest issues, have been chewed by grubs. Yeah, pretty much what would happen in most people's houses, I would imagine, or I hope I'm not the only one. But yeah, it's time to have a bit of a look at them and see what we're going to do. We are sort of starting to come into our autumn season here. Things will slow down growth-wise a bit, but we do have a pretty long growing season here. We're pretty lucky our winters are only short and very mild. So I'd have no dramas doing anything with these at the moment, but I think all I'm going to do is pot up the ones that need to be potted up, give them a good feed, let them grow, let them rest over winter, and when springtime comes we might start to cut some back. But we'll have a little bit of a look at them. The first one's the Melaleuca nodosa. It's put a fair amount of growth on, which is good. The pot doesn't feel too bad, but it could probably, yeah, it's not too bad. It could stay in that pot for a bit longer, but I reckon we'll pot him up into the next size pot. This one's really good at back budding, so we'll just let it grow, hopefully thicken that trunk up a bit more, probably over the next 6 months. So maybe it will be 6 months before you see him again. And then we can look at cutting back to one of these branches, maybe down lower, to put a bit of movement into the trunk and use that as a new leader and let it grow again. But we'll have a look at that when the time comes. This little fella, your Moreton Bay Ash. I'm buggered if I can remember his name, but I know it's a Moreton Bay Ash. I can't remember his scientific name, but it's your Moreton Bay Ash. It's grown really well, put on a lot of growth. It's starting to widen out at the base a little. If I had a slip potted it probably 2 or 3 months ago, it would probably be considerably bigger than this. But that pot is pretty tight, so it will need repotting for sure. Yeah, I would definitely put that up a pot size or 2, and we'll let him go again. But this tree will put on a lot of growth fairly quickly, so I'm pretty confident that's going to turn into a nice tree if we look after it in a year or 2. Now Casuarina, it's putting a lot of height on, as you can see, but not a lot of girth. I don't know the species name of this one. This is one we collected seeds locally and grew it. But yeah, it's growing quite well, and it can probably do a pot up too. Yeah, it's not too bad, but we'll probably pot it up as well. Because we try and put as much growth on as we can in the initial stages with these guys to try and get a little bit of size in the trunk. And I don't know that I'm going to do anything too long term with these, but I'd like to grow them for, I don't know, 3-4 years and just try and get a nice tree in that time. Just to show people that you can get a decent tree in a reasonable amount of time. You don't have to grow a tree for 30 years to make it look nice. This one's a leptospermum that I grew from seed here. Not 100% sure on the species of this one. Could be a brachyandrum, something like that. Might have a bit of a weeping habit too, which might be nice as it grows. These guys I've found really good for back budding as well. You can cut them back pretty hard and you'll get all sorts of shoots coming out on the trunk. But again, we'll probably pot it up. We might even pot them all up just to keep them in a sort of a standardized sort of pot size, so they're all doing the same thing. But it's really healthy looking too, despite being forgotten about for the last 6 months. They could all definitely do with a feed. This one was your Casuarina torullosa. It hasn't put a lot of growth on. I don't know if it doesn't like the conditions on the grow bench, or maybe it's too much water. Some Casuarinas don't like a lot of water, others just love water. this could be one that doesn't like a lot of water, and they do get pretty wet in there. But yeah, it's got a bit of a bulbous looking trunk. It's going to have real fractured, like corky looking bark, which is going to be cool. If we can get it to put a bit of size on. I mean, it is growing, but it's a lot slower than some of the others. Yeah, we'll put them all up, I think, into bigger pots. I'm not going to do any pruning to them today. I would rather they, just kept growing and put size on, because that's sort of one thing that gives an impression of an old tree is a nice big bulbous trunk. And you don't want to go overboard with it, but just to get a bit of size in it, you know, if you could get it a couple inches across, like this one will do it pretty easily, I think. And then we can start working on movement in the trunk and stuff. It's one of the hardest things, I suppose, when you're starting out with Tubestock and you want to try and make them into a bonsai. You sort of want to get in and you want to prune them and you want to wire them and you want to bend the branches and stuff. But if we prune all these back, you know, and bend them and shape them and stuff, we're just going to slow them down. You're better off, I think, letting them grow, letting them get some size about them, and then we can work on getting some shape and stuff into them later. If you want to get into something a little bit sooner, have a look around your local nurseries. You know, look through some of the older plants, even the discounted section, stuff that's been marked down because it hasn't sold for ages. You can find some interesting stuff. I've got this one's a leptospermum that I found in a nursery not all that long ago. And it's got a pretty cool shape to the trunk. I really like the shape, and I haven't wired any of that trunk. I've started to wire a couple of these branches into place to try and get the shape that I want, but the trunk was never wired. That was how it came from the nursery. It was a pretty cool little find. It's recently had a pretty serious haircut. That's why it sort of looks a bit bare, that'll get left to bush out now over winter, and coming into spring we'll give him some more pruning, but he'll get a good feed. And yeah, that's one that I do like. It's got some interesting shape. You can find them in your nursery, because we're all impatient, you know. We're all impatient when we first start out and we want to get in and we want to do stuff, but long term it's probably not the best idea for your trees. But if you want something that you can play with regularly, I'll grab another one of my trees that's sitting here. Grab a ficus. Man, those things grow quickly, especially if you've got decent season. Like this thing was like a tiny little tree in a pot. Probably wouldn't even be 2 years ago. I don't think it'd be 2 years since I bought this from Bunnings and started to turn it into a root over rock, and starting to get some pretty awesome roots coming down over the rock now. I have to do some more shaping and stuff on the top of the tree. The top of the tree is a bit disorganized and feral looking, but you know, you can get something pretty quickly with a ficus because they grow so quick. Some people don't like them because they're sort of seen as a beginner tree and whatnot, but I don't care. They look cool, and it gives you something to muck around with while you're waiting for some of the slower growing stuff. I mean, not that our Aussie natives are that slow growing, but you know, you do need a little bit of patience. Anyway, we'll leave it at that for now. I'll repot them off camera. Just pot them into a bigger pot. That's all. Just going to slip them straight out of these pots into a bigger pot. Give them a feed, back on the bench. No pruning. And we'll come back, yeah, probably after winter, I'd say, into spring, and we'll have another look at them. Anyway, thanks for watching, and grab some Tubestock and give them a go yourself. It's not going to take all that long, and these things are going to actually look like a decent tree. So have a go at them, and post some comments down below. Let me know what you're doing with Tubestock, and yeah, let me know how you're going with it. Thanks for watching.